Hey guys, I have a really awesome episode for you guys today. And if you joined me last week, I did my 2025 ins and outs episode. And one of my ins for 2025 was cutting off all dead ends. So if you're feeling like you might have some dead ends in your life that you need to cut off, then join me today. You are in the right place. We are going to get into it. Is this mic on? Ugh, I'm so bad with fucking technology.
Mommy, you said the F word.
Sorry, babe. Welcome to Mommy You Said the F Word. I'm your host, Sarah Goldsboro. I've experienced firsthand the messy, magical, and sometimes maddening world of motherhood. We'll share some laughs and shed some tears as I dive deep into the highs and lows of life, confront loss, chat about career, fitness, creating a life you love, finding yourself again after kids, and who the fuck knows what else. This is a space where authenticity reigns supreme. So get ready to strip away the BS and get candid as fuck. So let's jump right on in. I am just feeling like 2025 is the year to cut off all dead ends in my life, and I'm feeling like a lot of people feel me on that. So cutting off dead ends, that could mean people, that could mean a job, that could mean relationships. It could mean a lot of things, but basically the way that I see it is dead ends. It's just basically anything in your life that you feel like is weighing you down, anything that's just like draining your energy, stressing you out. Like, it is the time, beginning of the year, it's like the best time to have a fresh start. I feel like I don't like to bring anything negative from the past year into the new year. It's just a good time to start over, fresh start, clean slate, try to just make it the best year that we possibly can, like straight out of the gate, like from the beginning. Letting go of anything negative in your life, anything that's holding you back, stressing you out, weighing you down. It's just the time to reevaluate things in your life and start to prioritize yourself. Prioritize your family, prioritize your goals for the year. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that. I feel like this is something that a lot of people have trouble doing. It's something I certainly have had trouble doing in the past. And I am going to share with you a couple of stories that I've experienced in my life that have to do with cutting off dead ends. I feel like the more that you do it, the better at it you get. And it has to do with prioritizing yourself, not always people pleasing. We try so hard all the time to make everybody happy around us. And sometimes we lose ourselves a little bit and forget like what is important to us. We don't always put our mental health first, our physical health. Like, we are always, especially as moms, we are always thinking of everybody else around us, what's best for everyone. But like sometimes we really need to prioritize ourselves in order to be able to be the best for everyone else. So I'm going to share with you a couple stories from my past that I feel like has really led me to where I am today, has allowed me to grow and evolve into the person that I am today, because Sarah at 43 is definitely not who Sarah was at 23 or 33. And I feel like it really is important to look back at your experiences and really see how far you've come and allow your past experiences. Mine were messy as fuck. I had a extremely messy dating life in my 20s into my 30s. I had some rocky friendships. I had some definite work drama. So I love to just look back over these things. I laugh at them now. At the time, it was very stressful, but I really like to look back because I feel like life is going to be full of lessons and mistakes. I felt like I was blindfolded, just feeling my way in the dark for a big chunk of my early adulthood, and that's fine. I feel like It leads us to where we are today. It allows us to grow. It allows us to learn lessons in life. And I really do feel like the universe rewards you for living your truth and trying to do what's best for you. I feel like when you know in your heart what you want and where you're trying to go in your life or who you're trying to be, I feel like once you take that step and you're like, okay, no more of this bullshit, no more of this stress, and no more of these people who are draining my energy. Once you say no, like I'm cutting these motherfuckers off, I'm leaving this job, I am doing what's best for me, and I know that in the long run, this is going to be what's best for me. I think once you make that decision and it's truly the best decision for yourself, I feel like the universe rewards you. And I feel like things start to fall into place once you decide to be honest with yourself, once you decide to cut off all those things that are weighing you down, holding you back. I feel like the universe does reward us. So I'm going to share with you a couple of my own personal stories dealing with this subject of cutting off dead ends, because I've certainly dealt with quite a few stressful people, stressful situations in the past. So I'm going to jump into my first story. So I was dating this guy for off and on for about 9 to 10 years. And this started in my early 20s. I met him at a club, of course, in the early 2000s. Where else did we meet people? But I met this guy at a club in my early 20s. And we off and on dated for almost 10 years, like into my 30s. And this was one of those relationships that everybody told me, like, he ain't shit. You need to break up. You know, we were back and forth for years, and drama and gaslighting and cheating and lying, you name it. This relationship was that. And towards the end of my relationship with this person, he had moved out of state and I was going to visit him, and I will spare you a lot of the messy details. We'll save that for another episode. But I was going to visit him, and like, this is going to be the deciding factor. Are we going to try to make this relationship work or not? And at the time, we were broken up, but we were thinking of getting back together. Again, he had moved to another state, and I was going to visit him, and we were going to see if we were going to try to make things work. And it was always me, like, coming to him. And the relationship was always on his terms. He was also quite a few years older than me, so I feel like he used that to control me a little bit. Once again, I was going to see him. It was on his terms. He lived down in Florida now. I'm in Maryland, so I went down to visit him. This was his chance to impress me and show me that he had changed and he was ready to really make this relationship work for the final time. I knew this was probably not a good idea, and I think I knew deep down that in the long run, the relationship was probably not going to work. However, I did love this person at the time, and I did want to try to make it work, but I think I knew in the back of my head, the chances are it's probably not going to end up well, but I was like, I'm willing to give it this one last shot. I felt like I had put a lot of time, energy into this relationship. I mean, we were going on like almost 10 years back and forth. I feel like people fall into that trap a lot with feeling like they've been in a relationship for a really long time. So if you were to end it, like, it was just like all this time you wasted. So anyway, I went to visit him and we went to the beach this one day. And I really feel like in my mind, this was the moment where I knew for certain that this was not going to work and that I needed to cut all ties with him. I needed to cut him off. But it's so funny how in relationships sometimes we can go through so much drama, so much shit with a person, but it takes one thing, like the straw that broke the camel's back. And he had done so much worse things in the past, but it was like this one moment that in my mind, I flipped a switch and I was just like, I'm fucking done. He was also someone that didn't really ever make me feel good about myself. He wasn't like verbally abusive or anything, but he never complimented me. He never said, "Oh, you look pretty today." He never just made me feel good about myself. Sometimes he could criticize me. So anyway, just know that about him and why this moment I felt like I just was like over it. So we were on the beach and there was this girl a little ways down the beach. And I could tell, even when we were sitting there, he had sunglasses on, but I could tell that he was looking at this girl. And we were talking, and like I could tell he was a little distracted looking at this girl. And for a second, I was like, oh, like maybe he knows her and whatever. So we're sitting there for a few minutes and I keep feeling, I'm like, is he just like staring at this girl? She was like probably in her early 20s, cute girl, but she was on the beach with a baby stroller, which was weird, but whatever. So a few minutes goes by and like finally he turns to me and he goes, she has a really nice body, especially for having a baby. And I was like, did he just say what I think he said to me? So he was looking at this girl for the last couple minutes, but also did he just like compliment this random girl on the beach, like in front of me? Like to me? The girl that like you were supposed to be giving all your attention and we're supposed to be getting back together, and you're not someone who's ever like really complimented me before in all the years we've been together. I could probably count on one hand the amount of compliments you've given me, but yet we're sitting here on the beach and you're complimenting some other girl about how nice her body looks. These are things that you're thinking about when you're sitting here with me, the person that you're supposed to be getting back together with. And in that moment, I felt like our relationship, you know how people say their life flashes before their eyes? I felt like in that moment, our relationship had flashed before my eyes. Like all of those moments and all the times that I had cried my eyes out, all the times he had broken my heart, every single moment just like in a second, like flashed before my eyes. I felt like that moment was like meant to happen because in that moment, I felt like every ounce of me wanting to be with him completely left my body. And in that moment, I was not even angry. I had no feeling. I was like numb. It was just like as if every single feeling I ever had for him just was gone. Because I knew in that moment he was never going to be the person I wanted him to be. He was who he was. And he was not someone that I wanted to be with anymore or even have in my life anymore. And I knew in that moment that I deserved better and that we did not have a future together. So I left. We never spoke about this moment. I never told him how I felt about it because at the time I just felt like we don't really need to have a conversation about this. I feel like I had made up my mind. I did not need him to try to talk me out of it. In that moment, I gained a lot of clarity. And I felt like that girl was on the beach that day. I feel like for a reason. I feel like the universe, God, whoever, put her there to show me some clarity and give me clarity on the situation. So I went home. I didn't talk to him for about a week. It took this motherfucker about a week to even notice that I hadn't called or texted him. And finally he calls me and is like, is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm great. He's like, are we cool? He wanted to know what was going on with us. And I was like, no, like, I'm done. I was like, I'm done with you. I don't want anything to do with you. Like, you gave me all the clarity that I needed. And I'm glad I came to visit because I made my decision and I don't fuck with you anymore, basically. And I had said this to him plenty of times in the past. And so I don't think in that moment he really got it. I don't think he believed me. But after that conversation, I did not speak to him ever again. He was calling me, leaving me messages. At one point, he even threatened to have his mom call me. He was leaving me messages saying that how dare I, like, cut him off and ghost him like this, that he was going to propose to me and we were going to be engaged. If you look up gaslighting in the dictionary, like his picture's next to it. Like, fucking just gaslighting the hell out of me, making me feel like I was doing this to him and he had been nothing but amazing to me. Just like narcissistic behavior, just a bunch of bullshit. He couldn't deal with the fact that somebody was finally not willing to put up with his shit anymore. And I am so happy that I can forever be the girl that got away. I can forever be the girl that decided to stop dealing with his bullshit and cut him the fuck off. I don't think any girl had ever done that to him before. You're welcome for learning that lesson. I feel like once I made that decision, like really made that decision, and there was no going back. Because when you go back and forth with somebody, when you leave that door cracked just a little bit, I feel like that is not truly making a decision. I feel like you still can't fully move on from a situation if you're leaving the door cracked even just a little bit. But I was like, done in my brain. I was like, no going back. I want nothing to do with him. That door was nailed shut. Nail in the coffin, done. Within a few months, my husband and I went out on our first like official date, and the rest was history. I can remember very clearly sitting there at a bar with him and we were just chit-chatting. We knew each other before we went on our first date, but this was the first time that we were both single and could really go on a date. Obviously, we liked each other, and so we decided to go on this date, and like literally sitting there at the bar chatting with him on our first date, like it was one of those things that people tell you about, like when you know. And like my heart at the time was completely open to him because I had completely cut ties with my past drama, horrible relationships. So I feel like the universe was like, here you go. You have been waiting for this person. He was from the very beginning just always this just very like calming, genuine, just I knew he was the person for me from our very first date. I knew that we were going to be in a relationship. I knew that this was going to be my husband because I always tell him, I'm like, I feel like from the very beginning of our relationship, I felt like he was home to me. And that makes me like get teary-eyed, but it's so true. I felt like our souls were like looking for each other and we finally found each other. And not to sound corny, but I do believe that he is my soulmate. But I just knew in that moment that the reason why he was coming into my life now is because I allowed myself to completely cut ties with situations that were not good for me. If I was still in a situationship with this ex, that wouldn't have allowed me to fully open my heart to somebody who was good for me. It would have been a distraction from that. It wasn't until I could completely cut ties with my ex that my husband came into my life and I could fully accept him and concentrate on that relationship and see that relationship for something that was healthy and something that I deserved. The universe brought him to me as soon as I made that decision to cut ties with my ex. And I truly believe that. That is one example of how cutting off dead ends, it just allows you to open yourself up to bigger and better and healthier opportunities. And that's just a relationship example. The next story I'm going to tell you, I was working at a salon at the time. It was a newer salon. And so, like, the owners of the salon, it was a very interesting situation. They weren't hairstylists, so they didn't fully understand the salon business. But anyway, it was a newer salon and I was doing really well there. However, I did have a really toxic coworker who we had been friends for a while. I started dating my husband around the time that I was working at this salon. And because I was now in a new relationship and spending a lot of time with him, this friend at the salon I was not spending as much time with. And I do feel like they got really jealous about that. And I knew that they were a very toxic, dramatic person. I've seen them act horribly towards other people and other coworkers, but I was like, oh, I'm friends with this person. He would never act like that towards me. Sure enough, he turned on me because I wasn't giving him the attention that I once was giving him. And he started to get really angry about that and started to make up rumors and lies about me at the salon. And he had the owner like wrapped around his finger. The owner started acting very nasty towards me as well. And so it just got to the point where I was like, I didn't have another job lined up or anything. I had a bridal business at the time outside of the salon. I had a hair and makeup company. We did hair and makeup for weddings. So I did have that, but it was not like full time. I was also still working in the salon full time. And I would say at that time, that was more of my income than the bridal business. I certainly did not want to leave the salon, especially the fact that I didn't have another job lined up. And anytime you leave a salon, you run the risk of losing some clients. But it just got to the point where this work environment just got so toxic. I dreaded going to work. I felt the owner hated me. I feel like this person I was once friends with hated me. I also was starting to get really angry because I was really trying to avoid confrontation and any altercations. But these people were really like pushing my buttons and really pushing me over the edge. And it all came to a head one day at the salon. And I just told the owner to fuck off. And I left the salon. I packed my shit up and I left. I had no job lined up. I couldn't take it anymore. In that moment, I was like, don't deserve this kind of treatment. Like, I'm not putting up with this anymore. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a plan, but I'm going to figure it out. And it worked out, obviously. At that time, it was when salon suites were starting to pop up. And if you're not a hairstylist, a salon suite is basically you go into a building and there's a lot of little rooms and they're for hairstylists. At the time, there's more now, but this was in like 2013, I believe. And so there wasn't like a lot of them just yet, but there was one in my area. So I ended up going and I opened up my own salon suite and I ran my bridal business from there. I ran my regular hair clientele from there. And it turned out to be a really great experience. It forced me to run my own business and to see that I could do it. It was something that was like scary when you've always worked in a more traditional salon where you're making a commission and you're a W-2 employee and you have a boss and, they're basically like running your business. But this was like, okay, like, I mean, I can figure it out. And yeah, I got an accountant to help me. It was just about getting a little organized and like figuring things out, like business wise, but it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. Yes, I lost some clients, but I also got some new clients and I was much happier because I didn't have to deal with a toxic work environment anymore and just like people treating me horribly. I was just like so much happier. If you're at a job where you feel like you're not valued and you're not being treated well, like that is obviously going to affect you, and it's going to affect your job. It's going to affect your mood. If you don't want to be there, people are going to pick up on that. So like this was just a much better situation. I had my own private space. I could decorate it the way I wanted to, and my wedding business grew, and my behind the chair business grew. I had some other stylist friends in the same building as me. So at the time, it ended up being a really good situation. And during that time, I got married. I got pregnant with Cam. I have very good memories when it comes to when I had my first salon suite. But it was just really a time of growth and just really a time of prioritizing myself and my business and learning how to be a self-employed business person, which was an extremely valuable time in my life to learn how to be completely self-employed, because that is a scary thing if you're not familiar with it, but it's not the hardest thing in the world. You just have to learn the business side of things when it comes to running your books and your taxes and everything, but it wasn't the hardest thing in the world. I learned very quickly, and it ended up being a very good situation, even though it stemmed from a very toxic, frustrating situation. But I feel like sometimes in life, these situations arise to teach us a lesson and force us to grow and maybe level up in our business, in our life. And I don't regret what happened. I definitely don't regret telling that bitch of a boss to fuck off. I definitely don't regret that. And I feel like I was standing up for myself and prioritizing myself and my mental health. And I look back and I'm really proud of myself about that. And that was, I feel like, a very good example of cutting something off that you know is definitely not good for you, but maybe you just don't have a backup plan, or you don't know what to do when you're in that situation, but like you just know that like you don't want to be in this situation anymore. And sometimes you just got to tell people to fuck off, cut them off, leave the situation, and figure it out. You have no choice but to figure it out. So that is story number 2 when it comes to cutting off dead ends. And the last story I'm going to tell you is when I was at a salon in 2020. So this was a salon I had been at for a couple of years, and then the pandemic hit in 2020. And the salon that I was at was a pretty big salon, and some of my friends worked there, and for a long time it was great. I did a lot of growing at that salon. At that time, I had started my Instagram hair page. I was bringing in a lot of new clients. At that time, I was really trying to become a balayage specialist. I didn't want to do like men's haircuts anymore. I didn't want to do certain color services I didn't enjoy doing. So I was using Instagram to really attract a certain clientele, which I was very successful with at the time. And so this salon I was at for a very long time was great. And then at the same time I was at this salon, one of my close friends and coworkers who I've been with for a very long time, we had a side business where we taught classes to other hairstylists, and that was really taking off. And I do feel like there was a lot of jealousy when it came to that from some of the other stylists that we worked with, and even the owner of the salon. I feel like she was starting to see us grow, and even though like she would say she was supportive of it, I think she was afraid that if we grew too much, we would leave. And obviously that would be not a good situation for her and the salon. She would lose money. People want to see you do well, but not too well. It was one of those situations. And we had some not so great conversations with the owner, because my girlfriend and I, who had a business together, we would sometimes talk about down the road, like possibly opening up our own space. And at the time, we had no concrete plans to do that, but we would just talk about it. And so the owner had confronted us at one point and said that she heard that we were leaving and got really angry about it. And we were like, are we not allowed to talk about our possible future plans? This was something we didn't have a timeline, but we're allowed to talk about what we might want to do in the future. But she just got really angry about it. So it just started to make the environment not so great anymore. And so we had looked around just a little bit at possible spaces to open our own space. We went and looked at a salon suite together, but again, we had nothing really set in motion at the time. And then the pandemic hit in 2020. And at the time, my friend and I, who were in business together, we were both extremely busy behind the chair. We were teaching classes together. That was doing really well. And while everything was shut down during the pandemic, we talked and we were like, you know what? I think this is the time. I think this is just now or never. I think this is the time for us to leave. Once everything opens back up, I think we should just have like our own space, like ready to go. And it was, again, like really scary, but really exciting. And we both agreed that we felt like this was the perfect time. At the time, we didn't know when things were going to open back up, but we were like, when things do open back up, we just want to be able to tell our clients we decided to open up our own space. So the salons were shut down during the pandemic for about, I believe it ended up being about 8 weeks. We were shut down. So during that time, we actually ended up going back to the salon suites that we had looked at previously. This was just like where the universe just aligns. At the time, the salon suites had just opened. They literally opened in March, right before the pandemic hit. So that particular building, it was not at full capacity. They still had suites available. And these places, these salon suites, they fill up fast, especially in a busy area of Baltimore like we're in. Like salon suites do not last long. They fill up fast. So we were so lucky that we were able, during the shutdown, we were able to go and meet with the owner of the building, and he allowed us to do a tour, and we ended up combining two different suites. We wanted one large suite because we were both very busy. We had an assistant. We needed a decent amount of space. But at the time, in order to open up a freestanding salon space, that takes months, even up to a year to build out. So this was like the perfect stepping stone. This was like the perfect situation because it was basically move-in ready. They were able to do the construction and combine the two salon suites while the building was closed and everything was shut down. And then we were able to decorate it while everything was shut down. So by the time the salons were ready to open up again, we had our salon suite ready to go. And so that was like a really sticky situation at the time because we did not tell the owner of the salon that we were leaving until right before things were about to open back up, because we were just like scared. We were also like, this was the first time in my life and most of my coworkers' lives that we were collecting unemployment. So I didn't know. I was like, I don't want to tell them like too soon because I don't know if she could end my unemployment benefits. I was just like, I think we need to just wait to tell her until things are getting ready to open back up. And unfortunately, we didn't like doing that because this was her business. We wanted to be able to give her as much notice as possible. But this was a situation where like we had to prioritize ourselves and our families because we didn't know what would happen with unemployment. And we just didn't know. The whole pandemic, that whole time was just like so many unknowns. And not knowing like what was going to happen. So we had to look out for ourselves and our families. So we ended up cutting off ties. And of course, she was not happy about it, but it ended up being a really great situation for us. I feel like we grew so much as stylists and business women during that time once we opened up our salon suite. This was truly like the first time that we were like completely independent. I had my own salon suite before, but this felt like our own like little mini salon. Like it just had a different feel. And I really did like working with my friend, and we had our assistant. Like it just felt like more of a little mini salon versus like when I had my salon suite before, I was completely by myself. And although it was a great learning experience, like I did sometimes feel a little isolated or lonely not working like with other stylists. We had so much fun during this time. And like I said, I think we just both grew a lot during that time. So that's another example. Not that you were necessarily in a bad situation, but just another opportunity presented itself for us. The pandemic, things shutting down, like we had been thinking about possibly opening our own space, and things just aligned, and we decided that was the time that was going to be best for us to make that next step. So like you don't necessarily always have to be in like a bad situation, but maybe you've been thinking about doing something and the opportunity just presents itself. And sometimes you need to cut ties or cut off those dead ends that have maybe been holding you back a little bit. Maybe you're at a job and you're not 100% happy, or you've been thinking about starting your own business or going to a different company, whatever the case may be. But maybe you're not in a horrible situation, but a better opportunity presents itself, an opportunity that you feel like is better for you or is going to allow you to grow or allow you to level up in your business, or a next step to get you to where you want to be in your career, like whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's not always like a horrible situation, but you just have to realize that sometimes opportunities present themselves. We also talked about taking leaps of faith. Sometimes you just have to take that leap of faith. It could end up being horrible and you regret it, but it's a learning lesson at the end of the day. But sometimes it could be the most incredible opportunity, and it was the best decision for you at the time. And so sometimes you really do have to just trust your gut in certain situations, take a leap of faith, prioritize yourself and your goals and your family, whatever the case may be, and really decide, maybe this situation, I need to cut it the fuck off in order to get to where I want to be, or to find happiness, or to find more success. Maybe you've been feeling stuck. And so I just feel like these situations are tough situations to be in, but I'm so thankful and I'm so grateful for all of the messy situations that I found myself in the past, because they really do help you grow. They help you boost your own self-confidence. It builds confidence when you start to trust yourself and when you make these hard decisions. And then you can see you do succeed. You succeed in a new relationship. You succeed in your career. Whatever the case may be, it's very good lessons to build your confidence and to really find out what you're made of sometimes, and to just learn and grow and become the person that you're supposed to be. We're not supposed to always stay in the same relationship. We're not supposed to stay at the same job. People are supposed to grow and change and learn, make mistakes and get messy and find themselves. This is all part of life. And so I just really encourage you to make this the year of cutting off all the fucking dead ends, cutting off anything in your life that is holding you back from living your best life, from being more successful, from being happy. Everybody deserves to have success and happiness and love, and just cut off these energy vampires, cut off these dead end jobs. You can go into things cautiously. You can just jump off the fucking mountain like I did with my one job, or you can have a backup plan. Find another job before you leave your current job. You can obviously cut off dead ends in a responsible, cautious way. Sometimes you find yourself in situations and you're just like, I'm fucking done. It's now or never. And that's okay. The universe will guide you, the universe will give something better to you. And I feel like we're put in these situations for a reason, and things will be okay in the long run. Sometimes we just have to go through these messy situations to figure things out. And I encourage you to really think about these things in your life. And is there something or someone that you can cut off and really make this year your year where you choose yourself and prioritize yourself and get to where you want to be in your life? So I encourage you to think about that. And I hope that you enjoyed these messy ass stories. I feel like I went through all these messy situations so that I could eventually be right here with you, giving you my words of wisdom, because I have lived it myself. And so I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and thank you all for listening and continuing to listen. And I am so excited to bring you so much more motivation and inspo and just, fun stories and life lessons. I just love it. And I wish you all a healthy and happy and successful 2025. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. Show me some love by sharing this episode, and be the first to know when new episodes drop by following the show wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube and follow me on social media at Mommy You Said the F Word.